Greetings and welcome to this TrapcodeTAO session. Today we're gonna look at a way together to create an iPhone or something that looks like it, but it's a bit perhaps not as thin. But anyway, I have a couple of things that I want to say before we started doing this. Well, at first, if we really wanted to have a realistic looking iPhone or a piece of geometry to integrate in a realistic looking environment or in a shot or something, I would probably not use TrapcodeTAO. This is not the reason we're using TrapcodeTAO here. Is perhaps it's you're working on a project that you don't have the time or you don't have access to a full 3D software. So that's one way you can create something real cool using a workflow that is within After Effects. So and also we have to keep in mind that TrapcodeTAO is a super powerful tool to create like extruded paths from custom paths from lights and fractals and stuff like that. And I don't think it's like a tool that was designed with the idea in mind to create like a super realistically looking real life object. But I think that's still a fun thing and a real cool exercise to just practice our skills with TrapcodeTAO to try to recreate real life objects. And of course, as I do those, I sometimes realize that there are some intricacies because, like I was saying, it's not a tool that's designed for that. It's mostly designed to make nicely abstract and really cool animations and environment and offset stuff. But still, it's a cool practice. And then we can apply all those offset and fractals and repeats and make real nice cool things that probably if we would try to make the same in 3D would take a really longer time to render, because using TrapcodeTAO we're really taking advantage of the GPU of our computer, and we can like have things that are really cool with reflections and all, and textures and in 3D in After Effects, and have a fair render time in the end. So perhaps that's something that's more accurate for your actual workflow for something. And also another thing that I want to say is that I'm gonna show you a way to create an iPhone. I'm not gonna show you the way to create this kind of thing. I mean, any way is valid, and even myself, if I would to be doing this in a month from now in the future, I would probably have an entirely total different approach doing it, either because TrapcodeTAO has been updated and it has new features, so it allows us new ways to do things that were not possible before, or either simply because I improved my skills and then I see things differently and I have different new accessible approaches to confront things that were inaccessible in my mind before. So enough talking, and let's just that being said, let's try to start to create this thing. So I'm gonna start from scratch and explain about as I go and as I try to recreate this model. So let's create a new solid. I'm gonna do it in a square composition, and so let's apply tau on a squared solid in a square composition. And at first we are going to work with masks. So when we set things up, we can simply turn off our path, automatically generated path, and let's create a rounded rectangle here, and let's actually make sure that we see it. And now let's make this perhaps smaller like that, and let's try to keep it the same amount of space on each sides. So now we have some kind of a basic shape for our phone. And let's activate the features that we probably know that we're gonna access. So I'm gonna default this at 3 seconds, and I'm gonna set the size from radius and activate that as well. Might be useful in the future. Let's get in the segments, and for the moment I'm gonna turn off the chamfer, and I'm gonna reduce the size. Now I'm gonna try to keep it proportional in terms of these values here, because it's gonna be easier for us to work with this. So we're trying to make something like that, but it's not an easy task with one single light to be able to fill this properly. So let me show you how we're gonna do this. So let's put 4 sides to that. That way we have some kind of shape like that, and then we can increase the amount of segments if we want to get smoother corners. And let's apply that to a light already if we want to have more control. So let's create a light. Let's call it TAO, and a spotlight. Is that it? It was a point light. Let's make it a spotlight. And I'm gonna create a new null. I'm gonna make it 3D, and I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna copy and paste my position data on it, so it's right at the center. And I think I can already pick up the mask path here by not selecting the mask here, but the mask path, and I'm gonna paste it right onto the position of my light here. So as long as I've done that, now I can check off the option here in the paths from mask, and I'll get all weird result, because we need, as we often need to do so, go in the right click on our light here and get in transform auto orient and set that to off. So now that we've done that, we get back to the same result we had with the mask, with one difference. We have some kind of small gap here at our loop point. Now, and one easy way we're gonna use to fix that is simply we're gonna get back to our mask here. I'm gonna use my pen tool, and I'm gonna add one more point right here where it's kind of flat, kind of in the middle here, and then I'm gonna hit V, and I'm gonna select this point that I've created, and I'm gonna right click, and in mask and shape path I'm gonna set this to be the first vertex of our thing. So now it's not gonna change anything because I've not changed my keyframes here yet. So I'm gonna once again copy my path here from the mask, and I'm gonna get rid of those to make sure that there aren't any orphans or remnants here. And I'm gonna copy back the position with this time this point here as the first vertex. So now we're not gonna have the gap, the weird gap, because it's not, I guess, looping, closing at near a corner. So we're getting close to getting something that's more like we want. Now, if we want to fill this part, an easy way to do that would be just simply to maybe simply duplicate, Control D our light. I'm gonna shut off those, and maybe I can bring this back to the center by simply copy and pasting the position from this. And this time we're gonna just scan from the top to bottom, or bottom to the top. Either way is valid to create geometry here on which we're gonna have this extruded path, but we want to stretch it on horizontally. And one way to do that, but keeping our values here in the global scale here proportional, would be simply to use a null to scale it. So we're gonna connect that to this null here, which is placed right at the center. And now that we've done that, we're gonna create a keyframe here and perhaps offset it right there, and then we're gonna rub this downwards here until we touch, and then we can come off here, and we're not gonna see it live because only what's happening on the first keyframe, we see it live, so then we can just reverse those, and then we can mess around with this on the top. That's another quick tip here. So now we want to stretch that horizontally. So how we're going to do that is through the scale of our null here. So let's uncheck the proportionality of our scaling here, and let's go in a minus here. So now we're filling up our gap here, and we're having kind of the base shape for our phone here that we're trying to make. So I'm going to create a camera, and let's make it 28 millimeters. So we're going to have a little bit of perspective here, and it's going to help us make it seem it's going to help us with the sense of scale here, and make it seem like it's more imposing to our view here. So let's undo that, and now let's add some part on which we're going to add a texture to, and we're going to add a texture which is going to be like the screen of our phone. So let's now I'm simply gone through Google here, and I'm searching for an iPhone here, and one thing that you can do here is in the image options here, you can like get in the search tools here, and you have some of those options here that you can only have the ones that are larger than 4, like this dimension here will show up in the results. So that's one thing that you can do to make sure that you have nice big images. And now you can right click here. I'm going to open it on a new tab, so I can have the page on which this image is here accessible, and I've saved it, and I've imported it in here. So let's get it here, and now I'm gonna make my texture. So let's see how we're gonna do that. This is really big, but I want something that is kind of rectangular. So I'm gonna make a new composition. I'm gonna call it text. I'm gonna call this one 2 because I've had another one before here, and I'm gonna make it taller than wider. So let's make it 200 by something like that. Oh, I think it's a bit too tall, so let's make this for even like perhaps around this, and let's bring in our image here, and then we can scale it down, or either way here, if we had this even larger, like make it any size you want, and then we can grab this little region of interest here, and we're gonna roughly get what's the content, what is inside the content of our screen here in the image. And then we're gonna go composition, crop to region of interest, and then we're gonna have something that's kind of ready to use as a texture. So let's get back, not on this one, but here. This is gonna be the second one. And let's bring in our text number 2. So roughly that big in our image, and let's shut this off here, and let's see. We're gonna get in the texture option here, and I'm gonna choose this. So now it's everywhere. First thing we might want to do is shut it off on both places. So to do that, we can do that, and this will make it back to this. And now let's duplicate this one, and yeah, this we don't need that to apply on it. And now we can like adjust those keyframes if we want to make it a different area for our screen here. So I'm gonna drag this one here and this one here. If we want to make it smaller, maybe now's the time. And then if we want to change also the width of this, like we might at this point connect it with a new null, with a different one than this one. So I'm going to duplicate this one, and then I'm gonna say you are going to be connected to this one, so that will allow me to change and have different value on here if that's what I want. But now the main problem is that it's not on the right size, so what I'm gonna do is make it the other way around now. I'm gonna make it so this is gonna be my height, and I'm gonna make it 900 wide, and I'm simply gonna rotate this 90 degree, and I'm gonna recenter it. So let's bring it like that, and it's more it's upside down, so if it's upside down, then we can uncheck this and just make it a minus number here, and oh no, that's still upside down. So instead of rotating it 90, we can rotate it minus 90 and recenter that, and let's hit Command Alt Shift to refresh, and now we can read our words here, so we know that we're in the right direction. But yet we need to change the scale, how it's displaying here. So let's do that by changing these values here. Let's see. So I think that's about the width that we need. And that's about right. And now I think that I needed a little bit to make sure that more of this show up here on the bottom here. And then I'm going to refresh. And then you can always like mess around with the scaling of your extrusion of your TAO part here, like we did before. Let's make sure that this is there and this is there. This one is connected to this one, and this one is connected to this one. Let's name them. So this is a phone part, and this is the screen. All right. Now our texture apply on here, and our texture doesn't apply on here, so that allows us to have only our image showing here on that part where we want it. And let's stretch that like. And then let's do that. And then you can use this one to move it all about like that. All right. So one thing we might want to do here, but I'm gonna first, to illustrate it, get over here and activate in the material and lighting the not the light fall off, but the image-based lighting. Let's roughly choose the industrial room here, and we're gonna get some reflection everywhere. We don't want it everywhere. We just want it to use that on the screen, so we can shut it off on both our lights here if we type down, and we don't need to put a space here. It might make it a little bit hard to read and very nerdy looking titles here for our lights there. But now what we've done, I've allowed us to get only the reflection of our garage on the screen, but it's now it needs to be adjusted. And now that we've done that, I think we lose the default lighting that TAO has if we don't have any lights. So we might want to create an ambient light, and let's make it ambient, and let's make this one a little bit blue, so we get back more of our light. And let's make a normal light, a point light, and let's make this one a warmer kind of color here. Now it's all bright here, right in our faces. Let's move that a bit on the side here, and if you see here, we have also the specular that is showing up. So we now want to reduce the ambient because it's too much, and also mess around with the Fresnel, and change the diffuse holdout, so it's gonna darken it up back again, and we're gonna get more close to the kind of result we want with our screen. I think we can reduce this also, but then we're gonna see how we can brighten things up as we want them. And let's make sure that those are bright here. So yeah, and let's try to call this light Tau Lumi, and let's see what we can get in terms of lighting if we activate this thing here, include Tau Lumi lights. So it's gonna allow us to use our radius here to kind of better get the type of result we want here. And let's try to make it a little bit of a side one here, a first light, and let's duplicate it and make another one here. Let's move this one to the bottom, and let's also tilt it a little bit. So we're getting a little bit of weird issues here on our screen. So what we'll do to make sure that we don't have that is get, and did I name that? All right. Let's get our screen here and make this not 1 but -1, and that's gonna offset it on the Z1 pixel and make sure that we have no issues here in intersecting geometry. So let's shut that off so we don't see it. And now it's all about calibrating those light settings, and maybe now is the time to mess around with that and make it a little bit more metal. Now we can pull back some of the ambient in, and it's all about the tweaks now. So that's the basic idea. Next we're gonna create our button, and maybe our screen is a little bit too big, so and see, they are like, this is a cube, I don't even need it to be that wide. But since it's hidden here, we don't mind, and perhaps we don't want to do that because it's gonna also make it wider on this angle. So if we want to change this, we can keep it with this setting here. So let's make a little bit more room on the bottom here, on the top. And let's get this one back to 20 maybe. So that makes our screen, we just want to have some place to put our button here down, the one and single button that we want to put here. So let's create an, let's we can just pick up this one here. Alright, and we don't want to use the texture on here, so let's make it 0, and right away we're gonna set that to a dark color so we can see it, and now our screen is off. And we don't want that connected to the null, and we don't want to have any keyframes on here for the moment. So where's our little part here? So right here we have our little a little square part here. We're just gonna bring it out here to see what it is, and we don't want this part to be that thick, but we want it to be kind of a circle, so we're gonna add some sides by typing down here in maybe 22 sides, just to get, we're still gonna get some visual poly here, but we don't want to kill the render time yet. And let's make this a little bit smaller here. I'm gonna get in the radius and drag this down to make this guy a little bit smaller. And now that we don't have any keyframes here, we can move it and really decide where exactly we want to put it. And it's still at the center. And now we can extrude it by making a keyframe. And go to 90, make another keyframe, and let's rotate here. And we're gonna like bring this back towards 0, and it's gonna make this little extrusion here, and we can like, whoops, bring it in a little bit more. And let's see here. Is everything at no, everything else is at 90 here, so let's keep it the same here. So let's bring this keyframe towards there, and then we have kind of our little button here. And it's rough, I know. And then we're gonna grab this one here, and this one is going to be automatically incremented, so we'll just want to set it back to 22, and let's make it a little bit smaller by hitting twice on A, and let's make it like this one is going to be 56, just a little smaller. And let's also bring it towards us, so I'm going to grab both my keyframes here, and so I want to make it just pull out a little bit. And also I want this one to be white totally. And well, I might want to use the same color that's here, so let's keep this like almost white, and let's use the same color as we have here, so right there as well. Let's do that. And let's also do that to make sure that it's all coherent here. And now perhaps we want to create a null object, and we want to align that with them. So let's look at their position. They are here, so let's make this one, let's tie it down, let's tie the position here, let's copy this data here. So we have this right here down at the bottom where we want it, and let's copy those onto this guy. Oops. And this will be our button. So I think that will help us to rescale if we need to do so. So if for some reason we do something that gets our button to be a different shape, and let me illustrate this now. Maybe you might think that it's a little bit thick for an iPhone. So now an easy way to make this thinner would be to change that here. But since that's making this to get a different proportion now, we're happy that we have this, so we can use whatever math is accurate to scale it back to its appropriate shape. And then also we can also use this guy to move around our button here if we need to do so. But we can't, remember that, keep in mind that you can't keyframe this and animate, because it's it's still used as data for the for our path extrusion, so it doesn't work this way anyway. And it still needs to be a little bit more like that, and also it wouldn't hurt if we brought it closer there. And what we also want to create is the little thing that's around, like the little reflective part on the side here that you can perhaps copy our base light here, and let's make the reflection on this, and let's make it green so we can see it, or let's make it green at first so we can see it better. And this guy, it's connected to nothing, so we don't have any null. Let's pull it up here, and let's create a new null here, and let's call this ring part, and let's make that 3D, and let's tie that to that. And now we just want to scale this down yeah, it's intersecting for the moment, but at first let's make it smaller on the radius here. And let's pull it back here like that. So that's with the right combination here of numbers, you can kind of get some kind of ring part. And if you make it real thin like that, and then you can pull it out like that, and get our ring part. But that's gonna kind of affect the rounding of the corners, and they might get a different aspect. So a real quick way to kind of fix that would be to change the path of our light. So now we're gonna just do it roughly. Let's delete our camera, and let's look at this. Let's look at our ring part here, and roughly what we want to do is just pull these off, and try to keep that as straight as possible, and oops, pull these in so we get like a wider rounding here on those points. And we're gonna do it approximately, but if you want to take your time and do that so it's kind of the same everywhere. And let's try to keep those about in the same distance here, and let's do the same on top here. So by doing that, we're kind of telling our ring part to get more rounded corners. Let me undo that. And now let's hit Control Alt front slash, and that will fix our rounding corner problem. But if you want to do it correctly, take your time. Now I'm going to create some camera here, and where's my screen? Now it's convenient that I've named those, so I can come right here and oops. Let's make this 21.5, And so that's and then this part we can, since it doesn't have the ref 0, it's kind of keeping its reflective properties, so we can make this a darker color here, and as we move around it's gonna, the reflection is gonna show up in this part. And let's see how to make those parts here on the top, those little parts here. I'm gonna simply grab one of those lights here from the button and the one that's darker right beneath here, and let's pick this up, and I'm gonna roughly I'm gonna perhaps unconnect this from that, and let's see. Alright, let's undo that, and I'm gonna copy this with its null, so I'm gonna move both on top, and this is going to be called top parts, so then I can move this upward. And now this is not going to be, this is going to be flipped on the side, but then we have these two rounds here. We can try to get approximately. So this is top part 1, and let's make it smaller. And now we can kind of keep those both as a team, and that's part 2. Make it even smaller. And there my light. And make it 5, maybe. I'm not trying to be really accurate here, but just to get the point across. And then this other part here, what I'm going to do is that, and then this one is going to be extruded, but not on the, it's going to be extruded on X. So if we want to extrude it on X, we have to rotate it on X, I think. Let's unconnect that for a moment. So let's pull this back. And let's see. What we kind of want is a flat part like this, to make this kind of shape. And then let's make this one smaller. And I did an incredibly bad job there. So let's try to center that more. And let's see that thing. Let's make it 5. And I'm gonna reverse those keyframes here, simply so that I can see the live update of that one. and you see the idea. Now we might want to need to pull those a little bit closer in, and make this one a little bit bigger. So that's the idea here. So we're doing those kind of things can kind of get something close to what would be cool to use as an iPhone prop for something that you can repeat afterwards. I don't know. Let's see. Let's open up the repeater. Let's get the first repeater. And is it going to mess up? Yeah, that's cool. Ooh. So I don't know. There are some great options that you can then pull off with that, and that's about all I have to show you for today. So have fun creating stuff, experimenting with TrapcodeTAO, and see you next time. And as always, thanks you for watching.